Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all of you. So, we all know market is changing, economy is uncertain, digital transformations are taking over, and there are so many things changing day after day. And then that's what makes agile marketing much more relevant than ever. So, today we are here uh, to have a panel discussion along with industry experts uh, from a different perspective to talk about agile marketing. To introduce myself, I'm going to be your moderator and one of the panelists as well. I have over 20 plus years of industry experience. I started my agile expedition in 2009, and I started off with IT side, CIO side of it to begin with, and then thereafter it's been kind of a very interesting journey with different kind of industries, different kind of roles, different kind of stakeholders, different kind of groups. And then 2017 onwards, when TCS took their vision that we wanted to be enterprise agile by 2020, that came a turning point for me, wherein we started expanding into other areas like finance, HR, marketing, and others. I'm an avid reader. I like to travel a lot. And then here we are. As I mentioned, I'm going to be a moderator as well as one of the panelists. So I'll be glad to share my experiences of the enterprise agile journey that I have seen for customers as well as TCS. So with that, I would like to kind of share some housekeeping rules or guidelines for you. All the windows are resizable, right? So you are completely in control of what you see on the screen. You can expand, you can minimize, just play around and see what works best for you. You can explore the icons in the bar below, like there is chat, there is a screen, there are slides, and you can continue to submit your questions during by using the Q&A wizard. So at any point in time, please feel free while we will be speaking. Of course, we encourage all of you to keep on sharing your thoughts, your perspectives. I know a lot of you have come from various different backgrounds. So please, let's make it as interactive as possible. So with that, let me go ahead and welcome my other panelists, the experts, and maybe I feel that I may not be able to do justice to the experience they are carrying. So why don't I request them themselves to kind of introduce themselves? So Jim, why don't we start with you?
Thank you, Priti. Yeah, so my background is that I spent 12 years with Microsoft from 1989 to 2001 in a combination of sales and marketing roles, and then I did 3 startups here in the Seattle area where I live. In one of those startups, we started using Agile in about 2008 on the software development side, and we had some success with that. And I started thinking about how to apply that to marketing in about 2011. In 2012, I organized the first meeting of Agile marketers where we wrote the first version of the Agile Marketing Manifesto, which I'll talk about later. And I've been involved in helping over 80 companies adopt Agile marketing. I'm also the author of a book called The 6 Disciplines of Agile Marketing that came out of my work helping people adopt Agile marketing. And I'm the co-founder of the Agile Marketing Alliance. Zoe, you're next.
Thanks, Jim. Hello, everybody. I am the founder of Bright. We're a boutique B2B marketing strategy consultancy. My background is 25 years in marketing roles, working across tech, consultancy, and professional services, pretty similar to Jim. And I decided after a fair old stint in corporate life that it was time marketing developed much greater agility and started to clearly demonstrate its contribution to the business. So over the last 10 years, Bright has been born and grown into a agile marketing consultancy. We are agile marketing practitioners, and we help clients to activate agile ways of working within their businesses change their operating models and to deliver and demonstrate those tangible business results. We're also a partner of the Agile Marketing Alliance, one of their favorites, I believe. And I'm really looking forward to today's Q&A and the discussions with the panelists. Over to you, Egmont.
Thank you, Zoe. Well, first of all, it's an honor and a pleasure to be with all of you today and on this panel. A bit about my current role and history. I head up Europe for the digital marketing and customer experience practice for TCS and focus on the financial sector. We advise, but we also have a marketing hub where we deliver marketing services for our customers, and we have Agile certified marketeers there. So we have some of that experience in-house. I started my career at hotel school, actually. And when we talk about customer centricity, this is, hospitality. It's all about customer experience. And so that was a great time. Went to university afterwards, and I wrote a master thesis on innovation. And at that time, it was waterfall at the bank where I was writing this master thesis, and I thought, this is not the way. It should be different. The word agile didn't exist then. Would it have been there? Would Jim have written his book earlier? That would have been great. Yeah, I love to make iconic customer experiences and create value for customers. So that's my passion. And stationed in the beautiful city of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Happy to be with you. Back to you, Priti.
Thanks, Jim, Zoe, and Egmont. I'm really glad to have you here. And one thing for audience to know that while most of us have been in different parts of the organization, different vantage point, many of us have been reviewer, panelist, part of so many discussions, and it's a great opportunity for us to kind of interact with you all and be here. So before we jump into agile marketing, why don't we understand what are the priorities for your organization? How does it look like? So let's start the interaction right away. This is multi-select. Please feel free to select as many options as you want. Fastest finger first.
Priti, I'm really curious to see what the audience answers because I'm tempted to choose all of these, right? I mean, all of these are important, but
Same here.
I'm hoping that they will select the most important ones,
Yes.
So it should be interesting to see what they say.
Yes, and Jim, all of us have to answer how Agile is related to all of this and how it is helpful to them.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yes. Okay, I see close to 60% have responded. Maybe a couple of seconds more. Okay, close to 69% have responded. Let's see. Okay, 70% have responded. Maybe last few seconds. So like Jim, are you all curious to know what the priorities of the organizations or the groups that all of you are part of? How does it look like?
Well, come on, Priti, I'm impatient. Don't keep me waiting. Tell me the results.
Okay, yeah, here you go, Jim.
Okay, here we are.
Yeah, so prioritizing the work for maximum impact. Okay, 60% feel that that's needed. Better alignment with organization goals and objectives. Yes, very much needed. Marketing work more quickly. Probably they are thinking that we are already doing it. It's we are all already responding to market, so probably that's little less priority. Changing direction on response or feedback. Okay, great. So most of you think that prioritizing work, better alignment, releasing work to market more frequently, and so many other things would be important. Now, because we are here to talk about agile marketing, why don't we get jump started and see how that will help to achieve some of or all of or each of these priorities, right? And maybe I would like to start where it all started. Long back, as Jim mentioned, Agile Marketing Manifesto. So let me hand it over to Jim. Jim, why don't you tell us? You have seen the very early days, you were the one who gathered everybody together, and you have also seen how it got revamped in recent times, right? So, how you have seen the journey, what are the values look like, and what is your take on how each one of this relates to the discussion that we are having today? Over to you,
Yeah,
Jim.
thanks, Priti. So um, we got together first time in 2012, and we put together a a set of values. And at that time, we had 6 values and 10 principles, and we only had one day to get together, and it ended up we only had about 4 hours of discussion because we had a bunch of earlier stuff to do, and some people had to leave early and all that sort of stuff. And so we felt at that first one that it was incomplete, that it was a draft. And we thought, oh, we'll get back the next year to, do that draft. Well, it took us 9 years actually to get back and revise it. But we did revise it in November of 2021. And we narrowed it down a little to these 5 values. And I kind of want to talk about each one of these. The first value is the one that I believe that makes the largest difference in marketing departments. And that is focusing on, as we say, outcomes over outputs. Okay. What I mean by that is that a lot of marketing departments are focused on all the things that they have to do. And I understand that, getting all the work done. They need to produce a webinar. They need to create a white paper. They need to produce an ad. They need to, run a digital campaign. I understand they need to do all those things. But those things are outputs. Those are not what we're really trying to do, which are we're trying to change customer behavior and getting customers to act in a certain way that produce business results and customer value. So, for example, we're trying to get customers to buy our products. We're trying to get them to produce marketing qualified or sales qualified leads, or maybe if you're a university, you're trying to get more applications, something like that. But that's an outcome, okay? And we need to keep our eyes firmly on those outcomes, the customer value and the business outcomes, rather than on the outputs. So that's the first value. Second value is about delivering value early and often over waiting for perfection. There's another issue that we have as marketing departments is that we often want to get 6 people to review something and make it perfect before we ever get it out there. You know, the right thing to do is let customers tell us what they like, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. You look at the best videos on YouTube or TikTok or whatever. They're not perfect videos. They are videos that appeal to customers. Third value is learning through experiments and data over opinions and conventions. And it sort of relates to the second value. Rather than sitting in a room and opining or putting out our opinions about whether this is better or that is better, let's get out there and test that, okay? We have a hypothesis that if we change this thing on our homepage, we're going to get more conversions than if we leave it alone, okay? Let's get out there and do more of that testing and make decisions based on data, not on opinions. The fourth value is cross-functional collaboration over silos and hierarchies. The way most marketing departments are organized, they're organized by the expertise that people have, creative, copywriting, digital marketing, etc., right? And anything that we want to do requires all of those things. We've got to have somebody to create the creative for the ad, and write the copy, and get the campaign out there. And instead of having those as separate departments or separate groups, we form teams that are cross-functional teams. And they have all of the expertise that they need to be able to get something done, to make those outcomes happen. The last value is responding to change over following a static plan. Now, if you're familiar with the manifesto for software development, this may sound familiar. In fact, there's only one word different, and that's the word static. We added that in there. And the reason we did is that as marketers, we have to plan, okay? And it's not planning that's the problem. It's if we leave our plans to be static, we don't change them in response to what we learn from customers, from those experiments, the feedback that we get, and the customer experiences. So those are the 5 values of Agile marketing.
Great, Jim. So I think while you are on it, why don't I take up one question that has come from our audience? You mentioned about cross-functional collaboration, cross-team collaboration. So can you suggest some things like how do we better drive cross-team collaboration to ideate and execute ideas? It's not just ideation, maybe better ideate and execute ideas that will help our business move forward.
Well, I think one of the first things to do is to start forming some pilot teams to focus on trying to deliver some greater value, okay? And one of the most important things when you form a cross-functional team is to really identify what is their charter, what outcome are we looking for from that team? How are we going to measure the success of that team? Okay, don't just form a cross-functional team for the purpose of forming a cross-functional team. Form a cross-functional team because you have a particular business problem that you want to address. I'll give you an example. I was working with Best Buy Canada a few years ago, 5-6 years ago, and they wanted to get into a new market. And so they formed their cross-functional team around that new market. And that it was an opportunity for them to do things differently. And they were able to make that new market just take off and be an important part of their business. So decide what's the priority and what's the charter of that cross-functional team. That's the most important tip I have in forming them.
Absolutely, Jim. So I think prioritization is applicable everywhere. And I also kind of like the idea of snowballing effect. Starts with small success, and then probably, it will be good idea to take it further. So now with that, why don't I move on and I would like to invite Egmont to share his perspective. So Egmont, you have been CMO with the insurance company. You have been with ING also. So as part of those experiences, how success or the transformation happened for your teams? What was the secret sauce? And I'm sure along the way there could be some lessons learned also. So could you please share some with us?
Yeah, sure. It's great you use the word secret sauce. So coming from a hotel school hospitality background, that's a good question actually. Yeah, so having had leadership positions in banking and insurance, both in marketing and sales is mostly digital as well, right? Um, I think it's good to realize this was in the financial sector. So why is agility important there, and even more now than in the past? I mean, the cost of labor keeps on rising, right? Customer behavior changes faster than before. And if you look at the financial sector dynamics now, for instance, where interest rates go from minus to plus, you have to turn around your whole way of thinking and way of working in marketing. So can you imagine that the speed of change and agility is demanding, and is it's really necessary to be fast and adaptive. Now, mm, I have I've experienced two ways of becoming agile. And for me, I always start with the end customer in mind, and that may be my hospitality background. So I always begins and ends with what we want a customer to think, say, or do after they interacted with you, right? Um, and I brought this one. I always use a call out at the start of a project, and with the team, we would write down what we want them to say, think, or do. This one is an old one from DAS, which is a legal protections insurer. And so we wrote down, this is what we want customers to say, think, or do. Okay. And we glue it on the wall and we keep it there so we don't forget. So that's one way to get started, right? But in my experience, if you look at ING, that was a big bang approach to go and work agile. It was a reorganization, and at one point they started to work agile. And of course, they had coaches and help because it's quite a change, right? That's a whole different thing to get started than where I was in DAS, where there was no, let's say, no alignment in leadership to work agile. So how to start there was a whole different experience. The secret sauce there was just get started. I mean, this is a great manifesto, but we wrote our own manifesto. And then we made our own dashboard. And that's actually the outcome approach. What are the real KPIs? What is the definition of success? We wrote it down together and then aligned it with the departments we were dependent on, where we had to work together to close the funnel. Because in marketing, what you promise outside has to be delivered inside. So we were also the custodians of the customer experience. You can't do it alone. You have to work together. So that was a way to start. And then experiment with working agile, have it led by experts or get help. And then our idea was, let's make it so contagious, our way of working. People are so enthusiastic. Everyone wants to work with us, get enthusiasm, and then gradually grow. And when a new CIO was appointed, he was a fan of Agile. So we became, let's say, allies in getting the organization to the next level. So for me, it's important to live it as a way of working. It has to be in your DNA. And we're humans. And I've learned that after 40 times practicing something, you actually internalize a way of working. So it takes time. And it's hard, and you have to practice. And your siloed friends, they won't adapt in one project, two projects. So it really takes time. And but all in all, we the marketeers can energize, we can connect, and that's, I think, the role we should play. Marketeers can be the front runners. You don't need to wait for IT. That's what I would say.
Great. Thanks, Egmont. And with that, probably I would like to ask Zoe also. Zoe, you listen to what Egmont described. Would you also have one or two secret sauce that you feel you would like to add on? We have a platter now.
Yeah, Yeah, definitely. I mean, I agree with much of what Egmont was saying was really resonating, of course. I think it's really important when you embark upon this type of change, and it is a change of not just ways of working, it's a change of mindset. It's very important to establish that growth culture and to really give people that kind of permission to fail and to accept that you're going to take a test, learn and improve approach. Otherwise, you're not really going to get the outcomes that you want to. And then 100% you need to align with those KPIs that you're looking to achieve as a marketing function. If it's proof of concept, you need to put some baselines in place. I would say that's really important, critical success factor. So you can show what you've learned as you move through those early sprints, because there's so much to learn. As Egmont said, it takes a lot of practice to get these ways of working embedded and working in a streamlined and cohesive way. So I think we shouldn't underestimate that, and the need to kind of keep that in mind and take measurements and really celebrate those small wins, no matter how small they are, early on, because it will keep people's confidence high, give them kudos. And not everyone will feel comfortable with this journey, so you need to keep that in mind as you move forward to overcome those hindrances, and support those who might be less enthusiastic, shall we say, as you change how your marketing department is working and the flow of the work. So yeah, I think Egmont summed it up brilliantly. But yeah, for me, I think that growth culture combined with a really tight focus on metrics and measurement is so important to keep people engaged and positive, but also to show what you have achieved, and to learn from it, of course.
Absolutely, Zoe. So I think begin with an end in mind, have some KPI or measurements in mind where you want to reach, and don't wait for that final destination. Journey itself could be a beautiful experience. So celebrate small wins. Now, with that, we also saw different angles or different experiences of transformations. Maybe why don't we understand from our audience uh, whether they have implemented agile marketing in their organization? How does it look like? So maybe one more time for poll question.
I think this will be a really interesting one, Priti. I think we're still finding agile marketing as being quite nascent in many of the organizations we engage with, but there's a lot of appetite to understand and explore it,
Absolutely.
how far people have
Absolutely.
come, as you say, on the journey.
Absolutely. And don't shy away if you are a newbie to agile marketing. All of us start somewhere, so that's perfectly okay as well.
By the way, I've been looking at some of the questions, and one of the most recent questions isn't actually a question, it's a statement. It's saying some of these concepts, for example, putting everyone in one team instead of departments, may work for small company, but won't work for the enterprise. I'm going to beg to differ. I mean, I had a nice conversation with IBM in New York last month about how they transformed, their entire marketing organization. I think they're a pretty large organization. Microsoft, my former employee, not all of their marketing departments have gone agile, but a number of them have. There are a lot of large organizations that have implemented agile marketing. It's harder, okay, no question about it, but it can be done.
Yes. And speaking of large organization, I'll be glad to share the TCS is on transformation, right? We are talking about such a large scale, so many countries, so many people, so many groups. So let's see.
Maybe a question, Jim. Talking about large and small organizations, in my past, we struggled because we were a smaller organization. So there were not enough resources to man the various teams we would like to have these experts on. Let's say, for instance, actuaries, they're scarce. So how to deal with that if the scarcity of team members is there?
Yeah, there are some functions in an organization, lawyers, actuaries, videographers, all things like that that are scarce. And they can't be on every cross-functional team. So what you have to do is establish them as service organizations that have service level agreements, or I call them service expectation agreements, that say, okay, if you want to, get a legal document reviewed, 85% of the time, we're going to get it back to you within 48 hours. That's our service expectation agreement. Okay. So I know that if I'm, I need to get that done, I need to build 2 days, 48 hours into my process to get that there. So nobody has completely all cross-functional teams. Okay. It's always a mix of, what I would call service teams and cross-functional teams. Okay. And you just have to make that work so that the service teams deliver in a very reliable way.
Thanks.
Sure. And I think talking about large enterprises and startup, we have one more question. Okay. What advice would you give to a startup where concept of silos doesn't exist, right? They are small, they are anyways collaborating, but what else they can do? What is your advice?
I think with startups, they tend to be more nimble anyway by their very nature, but one of their challenges is probably that they have a lot to do and a less resource than a larger entity to pull on. So prioritization is very important to remember the outcomes that they're looking to achieve so that they don't get lost in the business as usual or easily kind of end up going off-piste, shall we say. Very easy to get distracted from what's important and what's going to contribute the value that you're looking for. So I think they have the opposite problem. Probably they have less resource to actually deliver, so they need to prioritize better to do the most effective activities and in order to reach those business goals.
Yeah, I think startups have a built-in advantage in that they already have cross-functional teams, right? Everybody will do whatever needs to be done. And I think he's always absolutely right. They have to prioritize, okay? One of my favorite books about startups is a book called Running Lean and by Ash Moria. And one of the things that he talks about is, number one, you got to focus first on finding product market fit. Nothing else matters. Okay. Just make sure that you got a product that somebody will pay for and you got that product market fit. And then focus on your growth engine. What's going to be your engine of growth? If you do those two things, you're well on your way to having a successful startup. Yeah.
And maybe one quick observation from my side, because I started my career with a small company. And while it's really great, things move really, really quickly. Probably one of the challenge they may face when it comes to scalability, right? There are a lot of things that happens inherently. So what is that clear definition of done? What is that good looks like across? Or what are the other things that they need to do across the board? Lot of things like code check-ins, maybe I'm saying more from IT side of it, but then from marketing side also, maybe having a what is my definition of ready, definition of done at a small scale. It doesn't have to be very comprehensive, but having that single source of truth, having that single meaning for anything and everything that we do will become important for them to be able to scale up, because otherwise startups may work really great in a small count, but when it comes to scalability, there could be some problems. Great. So let's take a look at how most of you have mentioned that we have started, but we are still in the process. No, but we are considering implementing in future. That's a good news, and I hope there will be a lot of learnings, lot of key takeaways there will be there for you. And then if you haven't started, maybe a lot of things we already said, start small, pick up one or two things that may work for you and start somewhere and start celebrating, and you never know, you may see the full power of Agile along the way. So with that, let's move on. Zoe, I was looking at the quote that you had mentioned in LinkedIn, and of course, while we are at it, probably in terms of data-driven decisions or experimentation, what kind of examples you have seen? I know you have been helping a lot of customers for their marketing transformation. So could you share some examples wherein this was done, this was implemented?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll talk through a couple of examples to kind of bring it to life. So I think the first example is a company that we worked with last year. They're called Reward Gateway. You might have heard of them. They're one of the biggest company benefits providers in the world. But they decided that there was a big opportunity for them in the SMB market. And in order to take advantage of that, they really needed to get to market fast. And they felt that their current marketing operating model wasn't going to empower that. And they were going to miss out. So we worked with them really to help them to create a new model to take the new SMB proposition to market at pace, which we successfully did by forming an agile marketing squad with their marketers and their subject matter experts and the product teams and the sales team members that needed to be involved in order to make that happen. And for them, in terms of what they needed to deliver on their objective, it's a SaaS product. So it was ARR, so the annual recurring revenue was key. And they needed to acquire new clients to prove that they could build up that model over time. So the KPIs were all around new client acquisition, and to get the new proposition mobilized, which was an entirely new segment for them, we needed to do a lot of experimentation. So it really came down to really carefully thinking about how we could use the data and insight from our experiments in order to really quickly improve and then scale the campaign outreach. And we did that on a number of levels, but I guess a good and easy to understand example is around creative. So taking a look at the campaign creative, we tested across social channels a number of different creative approaches into micro segments in order to gather data quickly, and then we took all those learnings quickly back into improving and then relaunching those out to the wider market. That included obviously visuals, messaging, we tested with people, without people, all those common things that you would like to test generally as marketers, but having the data and insight to prove what worked best and then take that forward and be really lean, actually, because although they are a large global organization, this was a new market entry for them. They wanted to do it in a lean way before they invested a lot more. And actually the results, if you're talking about results, so in that first year they smashed their ARR target, that's a tongue twister, securing over £400,000 in revenue in that first 6 months of that year that they went into market. They acquired over 200 new customers onto the SMB platform in a short space of time. So actually that was a really good example of where a large company introduced an agile marketing approach to take a proposition or product in this case to market quickly and to really learn, and then scale and deliver the results. And then the other example is really more around publishing. So a firm, a global B2B digital media firm, they had a number of titles. What they had was a hypothesis around social media and social advertising and how they could improve that through experimentation. So we worked with them again to help them to define their experiments, help them to then take those ideas that they hadn't been able to test previously out to market and to rapidly learn what would engage their audience. And some of that work was, important to really take a close look at their personas and their customer focus. And as Jim alluded to, making sure actually that we did have a good market fit, that they were talking to their customers in the right way. And they ran through 4 12-week sprints and they had fantastic results. They smashed all of their subscription targets within that process because, again, they're very lean and very much able to adapt their messaging and their creative in order to be successful. So both of those examples are really good kind of short proof of concepts. Hopefully that brings it to life for people.
Great. Thanks, Zoe. I think that brings that aspect of customer centricity, experimentation, and not waiting till making it like too perfect, but rather go hit the road and you will see what is beneficial. Either you continue or maybe you take something else. So, Jim, do you have any points to add to what Zoe mentioned?
Yeah, I want to take a slightly different approach. Zoe's done a great job of giving us two examples of how organizations improve their agility and their ability to deliver better creative and better outcomes and so forth. I want to talk about something slightly different, which is that Agile can also be applied to how we do our work. And what I mean by that is we can try little experiments, we can measure the data and see whether we're improving things like our throughput, our cycle time, the time it takes us to get something done, the efficiency of the team, not just the effectiveness of the team, okay? Because it's important to be both effective and efficient. And I've been working with a client here in the United States. They're an agency, okay? And we have been working on trying to improve how they can deliver to their clients sooner and with less risk, okay, more predictably, right? And we've seen some great results. I mean, they have improved they started to measure their throughput, and one of the teams has improved by like 170%. So they've more than doubled their efficiency of delivering stuff to their clients. So with the same number of people, they're delivering more and better campaigns to their clients. So I think that's another area to focus on, is to use Agile to implement Agile itself, right? Do it in an experimental, gradual, small changes sort of way and measure the results.
Well, all great examples, Jim. And I, especially coming from that enterprise agile journey, I have worked with a lot of customers, helping them transform. On the other hand, as I mentioned, in 2017 onwards, we as a TCS also underwent that very big, large. In fact, this is one of the large transformation for any organization ever. So when I reflect, I always think that, okay, agile marketing is one. How does that interplay or relationship with the overall enterprise agility work? Are there any preconditions that needs to be in place to be successful? So when I reflect on that, probably there are three things that comes to my mind. All the points that are mentioned so far, those are as relevant as ever. In addition to that, I feel that, and to some point we also spoke, that whole is greater than the sum of its part. Aristotle mentioned that. So rather than just looking at the small pockets of excellence, is there any end-to-end value that we can look at, like keeping customer in mind, begin with and end in mind, but what are the steps where the bottlenecks are happening? Are there any ways for us to look at that entire organization, not just for marketing, but how marketing interacts with sales or product, or maybe they are leveraging HR department. So I think, in my view, probably that's one of the things, value stream mapping, that I could find could be very well relevant for marketing, not only to be effective and efficient within their own areas of work, but rather like as an organization. Other thing, I'm also looking at chat. A lot of you have been speaking about AI and technology. I think technology plays a very, very big role. And I'm not just talking about the technology that we are going to use as a tools like ChatGPT, or what we do to use the coding or creatives or review. I also want to mention that technology plays a real big role when you are working in a large, big enterprises. You have people across the geographies. So even the collaboration tools, how do you maintain that single source of truth? How you can leverage automated dashboards? I think we also mentioned. I think technology again plays a very, very crucial role. And third thing in my mind, that is learning organization. How do you become learning organization? Now marketers also need newer skills, and probably I'm not just talking about hard skills or soft skills. If you really look at working with a very diverse culture, organization, ways of working from partners, vendors, agencies, IT, HR, that itself demands a very different growth mindset, collaboration mindset. So I think I also feel that continual learning is also the key, not just in terms of the hard skills and soft skills, but in anything and everything that we do. Like how do we inspect and adapt? How do we experiment, data analytics, lot of things that we discussed. So I thought in my reflection, I just wanted to share these aspects. Any of you would like to add to the relationship, how you see it between the enterprise, agile, the entire organization, and the marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely
Jim?
agree with
Yeah.
you on a number of
Yeah.
those points, Pretty. I think like the advent of RevOps and the alignment across sales, marketing, customer success, product marketing is so critical for overall success of the organization and meeting those goals collectively and having that collective view of the KPIs. So for me, that kind of is such an important part of going on this journey. It's to try and create that understanding within the organization. And of course, some people are at different stages of maturity, shall we say, and sometimes marketing departments are ahead of the curve, and sometimes they're behind the curve in terms of organizational agility. But you can still be an advocate and you can still help to generate those pockets of excellence within your business whilst that strategic point of view is kind of being realized. So I do think that marketers can really drive that forward through the kind of co-sharing of KPIs with those kind of customer facing teams in particular.
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
Zoe. I think it's, yeah. Yeah, Jim.
Well, Egmont was going to say something. Egmont, go first.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, what we see is that more and more marketeers and CMOs, newly appointed marketeers and CMOs, have a tech background, marketing technology background. So, marketing departments tend to be both sides of the brains, right? The creative side and the rational side, the tech side and the creative side. So it's getting more and more tech. And I think this is a good development because customer interaction is more and more digitized. Since I started working in 2000, we are replacing human interactions with digital interactions. Now, if customer experience you're the custodian of customer experience as a marketeer, you have to understand this, and then you can also orchestrate customer engagement. And if your organization is really customer centric, you're be organized around customer segments rather than products, for example. And then it's easier when you're, a cost leader or a product-oriented company. I think it's tough to make a start. But I wonder how you see that, Jim.
Well, one of the things I was going to mention is the importance of trust in getting marketing departments to work with the other parts of the organization and vice versa, right? There has to be respect from those other parts of the organization to marketing's area of expertise. And marketers, quite frankly, also need to understand what the other parts of the organization can do and what they bring to bear and so forth. In terms of getting started with it, I'll go back to cross-functional teams. I mean, there's different kinds of cross-functional teams. There's ones where it's within marketing and you have people with the different marketing skill sets, but we also see cross-functional teams where you have somebody from marketing, somebody from IT, somebody from operations, somebody from finance, working on a particular problem. And when they do that, they start to understand, oh, this is what this person brings to the party, and this is what this person does. And you start to realize too, what's hard about their job, right? Like you think the IT guy tells you it's going to take 3 months to do something, and you think, come on, that can't take 3 months. And then you start seeing okay, they got to do this and they got to do this and they got to make sure that it's ready for marketing ops and, just all the things that are necessary to do to roll out a serious system. And then you say, wow, they get that done in 3 months, So I think trust and respect is key.
Absolutely.
Agree,
So I
Jen.
think
So
all those points, yeah.
So it's you have to be an authority. Master the subject in order to be trustworthy or credible for what you're trying to achieve. But it's hard work.
Absolutely. It's hard work to combine that art of creativity with the science of data and analytics, and a lot of technology related questions we are getting. So why don't we hear out, although we have been discussing, interacting, answering some of the audience question, why don't we open up for, why don't we pick up some questions? What I'm seeing that while we have covered most of the other aspects, there are questions around agile approach in budgeting and cost optimization. Uh, would any of you like to start with that? How lean agile budgeting works for agile marketing?
Well, I recommended a book called Beyond Budgeting by Jeremy Hope. And essentially, he takes a very agile approach to budgeting. What he says is that most budgets are out of date the day they are finally put together, and that they're a little bit like marketing plans. I mean, it's fine to plan, it's fine to budget, but you have to realize that they're going to change, right? And how do you deal with that? How do you establish some idea, because you have to have some idea of how much are you going to spend, and you have to have some controls and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, how do you, if somebody has a new campaign that is just knocking it out of the park and is producing great results, why limit it to the amount that you put in before you had any idea that they were going to generate those results? Let's put a little more money there, So anyway, check the book out. It's a great book. I've seen the guy speak. He takes a very agile approach to it. So I'd recommend that.
Yeah. And speaking of books, if any of you want to share any interesting book, any blogs or any webinar, podcast you may have, please feel free to put it. This chat is not just for question, but all of us are here. So many of you, it will be worthwhile to share what made us think, reflect. So any book, anything that you want to share, not just ask questions, that will be great as well. So now, maybe one more question I would like to take from the audience, that getting closer to customer can often be an invasive goal because conditions surrounding the customer keep on changing. So any agile perspectives that will help deal with such a state of flux? Like how do we kind of, keep customer centricity in mind and still, in fact, there were a lot of questions around brand building also. So while you want to still focus on brand building, are there any ways you can still keep a focus on customer centricity? So managing the balance. Jim?
Well, we do these things called monthly challenges over at the Agile Marketing Alliance, and we just did one around customer centricity in April, and so I'd encourage you to go check that out. Okay, but one of the things that we said there are 3 parts to trying to be really customer centric. Okay, one is you got to understand your customers. You just simply have to invest in voice of the customer type of activities. And you can't do this completely on the cheap. You have to spend money and time and effort on really understanding your customers. The second thing is, I don't think it's about brand anymore. I think it's about experiences. I'm going to go back to what Egmont said, right? Hotels don't get brand because they create new logos and because they introduce new colors and they do, all that stuff that's in a brand book, okay? They get a brand reputation because of the experiences that they deliver to customers. And it's the same in our business. So we need to really focus on designing remarkable customer experiences. And to some extent, I'll go back to the question earlier about forming cross-functional teams across not just marketing, but in other parts of the organization. I think that's a lot of how you develop great customer experiences, is that you bring people together from all parts of the organization, because otherwise the customer is dealing with the fact that this part of the organization has no idea what the other part is doing, and that sort of thing. Okay. So somebody asks, brand is experience? Yes, that's right. Brand is experience. Okay. It's not a brand book. Brand is what is in people's heads as a result of the experience that they have with your organization. It's that simple. Okay. And then the third thing that I think is really important for customer centricity is that you have to operationalize it. What do I mean by that? It means you've got to build a customer-centric culture. It means that you have to look at all of your processes and operations and make sure that they're customer-centric. It means that if you're a marketer, every single thing you do, you have to write a user story that's really from the point of view of the customer. Okay, you got to make sure everything is got a process and an operations that is squarely aimed at customer centricity. So you got to operationalize it. You can't depend just on the CEO saying we're going to be customer centric. It don't work that way. You got to go out and operationalize it in the organization.
Absolutely, Jim. And
I would be
considering
more
time,
extreme even, Jim. I would be alarmed if a CEO says we have to be customer centric. Then there's something very, very wrong.
Absolutely. I mean, because oftentimes when they say that, they're not really committed to it. They want somebody else to do it, right? Yeah. The thing to watch is how often is that CEO in front of customers? How often are they making decisions that are in the best interest of the customer and may, in the short term, not generate the bonus that they get from raising the stock price, right? Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. If you hear somebody saying a lot about that, I saw the statistic the other day, 80% of organizations believe they deliver a superior customer experience, but only 8% of their customers believe that they deliver a customer. And that disconnect, 80% think they're great and 8% of customers think they're great. There's a big disconnect there.
As a maybe it would be interesting to share this as a starting point. I often make two axes. One is the importance of an engagement to the customer and to the organization, and you plot with input of your customers how important is this connection with our company to you. They rate it completely different than the company, than how important it is to you or to us to earn money, to ensure continuity of the business. But if you make that graph, you'll know what connects, what experiences to focus on, to change, delete, automate, and which ones not to, because the customer thinks they're really important to them. If you automate or delete them, or you're not good at that, you'll lose customers. That's a very easy way to analyze that.
Yeah,
absolutely. So all this very interesting points, and I'm more than sure that we can continue till weekend also discussing, debating, conversing, taking up the questions. Audience and all of you participants, I can see there are so many questions. Please don't get discouraged if we haven't picked up your question yet. Probably in some time after this panel discussion gets over, in a couple of weeks, we are planning to share one summary wherein, and in fact, that's where I would like to see more questions, more perspective from you. So please feel free to share in due time, if not as a part of panel discussion, but definitely via other medium, we'll get back to you and we'll make sure that we are covering all the questions. So we are almost towards the end of the session. What a great conversation it was. I think very different perspectives, right from Jim taking us the where it all started with Agile Marketing Manifesto, Egmont sharing his story from ING and DAS, like two different perspectives. I think we need to take a picture of that later on. Yeah, Zoe taking us through that entire examples and journey of how she has seen by herself what has worked, what hasn't worked, and then probably I coming from that different side of it, not from the marketing, but I started on the other side of it, and then enterprise agile journey, the interplay and role of everything. I'm sure, I hope all of you got at least some things wherein you can start. If you have already started, great. There is one more thing you can do. If your organization has already reached to a maturity level, I believe that there could still be one or two things that you can do, because there is nothing called the top of peak of Everest, right? There, even if you reach the peak of Everest, there will still be some more thing to do. So I'm sure all of the panelist experts out here, they have shared this ideas, this key takeaways, this inputs, where and how you can get started. Now, how you can get started? Probably we could offer a workshop with you, free workshop with you. So probably maybe if you would like to answer to that poll question, how many of you would like to go through that workshop with us? And then, of course, as a call to action, there is a book a meeting also. So you can click on that. We will get an email and we'll get back to you. We will definitely get into conversation and see how do we take that discussion forward. So I'm sure it doesn't end here. There are so many more things we could do together. So
So while they're answering that, Zoe has in the or Lydia Kirby has in there a event that they're having next month on agile marketing as well. And of course, we'd also encourage you to go to the Agile Marketing Alliance. We have lots of materials as well there.
Yep.
So lots of places to learn about agile marketing.
absolutely. And I have been there, done there, and a lot of us have collaborated in writing blogs and articles. It's not just repository of good stories or material. Of course, it's there. There are a lot of case studies, but there is so much more. You can understand, you can interact with other people with the same experience, different experience. I think it's a great community, I must say. Okay. So you can still continue to answer. Of course, this is the secret. So I would like to do is I would like to thank all of our panelists, all the experts who took some time out. Closing remarks, summarization I have already done. So thanks, Jim, Zoe, Egmont, for being here, interacting with all of us. And as I mentioned, audience, thanks to all of you. I think we have so many great questions. We will keep on pondering upon the same. And as I mentioned, we'll get back to you in with some kind of summarized notes out of this session. So with that, thanks once more time, and have a good day, good evening, good afternoon, based on your time zones. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in. Greetings from Amsterdam.
Thanks.